On this week's episode of the Crowdfunding Nerds, we interviewed Nikki of TableTone, which is a audio immersive app for tabletop role-playing games. We discussed the importance of cross-promotion, working with influencers, working with publishers on unique audio experiences, the importance of data analysis, and how to use audio in games to increase immersion. Let's get into it. Hey folks, this episode is brought to you by Hero Time Manufacturing. That is Hero Time, the numeral 1.com. Hirsch Gleck has been a regular on our podcast. We highly recommend his services. He is a man of integrity. Hero Time, they can make anything. They've got competitive pricing, and they even do game prototypes. So make sure to check out Hero Time, numeral 1.com. A link is in the show notes. And if you use the code crowdfundingnerds101, you can get a 3% discount on your production through them. Let's get back into the episode.
Game begin.
Let's go.
I used to be a marketer like you until I took an arrow to the knee.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I am your host, Andrew Lowen, and I am joined as always by Sean, and we have Nikki Wickshada of TableTone with us. Super stoked to have you guys on the show.
You're very welcome, Nikki. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the invitation. I'm looking forward to our chat today.
So we've worked with you guys for quite a while, and I thought it was about time to get you on the podcast because we've had some really interesting case studies that I think we can share with the Crowdfunding Nerds community. Certain things that have worked, certain things that haven't worked. And there's a lot to kind of get into. And also, I know that you also have a really unique offer that you give to publishers. So anyone listening, there might be an opportunity here to partner with TableTone to sort of enhance what your game. So maybe you want to kind of give an introduction to who you are and what TableTone is and how it can possibly help publishers.
Yes, happy to. Thanks again for the invitation. Just a quick intro. I'm Nikki Wickshada from Green Lobster Media Technologies. We are the makers of the TableTone RPG audio app, and especially the developer of the adaptive audio engine. Our boss, Richard Tetzel, he's actually he has a background like many of us. He has a background in music. He has a background in recording, and he's a recording engineer and the owner of. He had a couple of studios, sound studios, recording studios in one in Vienna, one in Germany, I think. And he founded a recording studio here in Graz, in Austria. And I think 5 years ago, he decided to go into adaptive audio. Just explained it in a bit. And started actually the Green Lobster, turned like the Green Lobster Studios into the Green Lobster Media Technologies company, which is, as the name suggests, a technology company. We are the developer of the adaptive audio engine. Just really quickly, adaptive audio is a special format of playing audio. That's some kind of audio that can adjust to its environment. You have a song and you give input, and then it gets more or less intense, for example, or the mood of the song changes, or the instrumentation of the song changes, and so on. And this is what the technology is. This is the core of our technology. And I think 3 years ago there was the idea of putting the technology into an app, particularly into an RPG audio app. And that was when TableTone was born. I think that was a little bit before my time, but I think you guys did the crowdfunding campaign, the really successful Kickstarting campaign in 22.
We actually jumped in during your late pledge, so that's when we kind of got involved. So we weren't involved in the actual live campaign, but got in when it was on Indiegogo during the late pledge.
Okay, and that was really this whole, as I understand, this whole experience was really important because it was for us. Okay, we like to build this. We like to bring adaptive audio to the tabletop gaming world, and this was kind of like checking out the product market fit and checking out and seeing if there's actually a demand for that. And since it was, we started to develop the app. And the app is live since last year, beginning 2024, and it's I'd say a really advanced RPG audio app, RPG soundboard app for game masters that enables game masters to create their own soundtrack during the games they play. And there are different parts to it. You have like local ambiences, you have a soundtrack, like background music, you have ambiences like we call them global ambiences, like rain or bonfire or something like that. And then you have like one-shot sounds, like bone, like hitting with a sword or casting a spell or something like that. And with all those features, the game masters can build their own soundtrack to the game they're narrating.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Just the amount of sounds that you include in the entire packaging, and I've used it. Even in board games, if you're playing a board game, you could set it up as you could just have background music, and then if something in the game changes, there's just very simple sliders to change the intensity or to change the setting. So it's very sort of intuitive, and it really helps with immersion. Something that I've found. So I run some tabletop sessions with my family. We play Root, the role-playing game, which is great for kids, and just having TableTone there. We've played it without it, and we've played it with it, and the kind of the difference in immersion is huge. So I know that your background is in music production. Maybe you want to talk a little bit of how actual audio impacts immersion, because it's something I've personally experienced by using TableTone and not using it. It really does completely change the experience overall. And I suppose we've seen this in advertisements. If you have ads with no sound, with ads with sound, there's a huge difference in its performance. So maybe you want to speak into that, how audio really helps with the immersion.
So audio is really powerful in terms of connecting directly to your emotions. It's like if you watch a movie and you watch it, there are experiments where there's a movie without the music, and it's a lot more boring than when you actually have the music playing. And this is the power of music. This is the power of sound. So tabletop games and storytelling, it's very visual. It's very it's a lot about painting pictures, and showing pictures and having figures. And this is one part, and the music really connects those images and this imagery to the emotions, or closer to the emotions. And that you said it enhances the immersion when playing. That means immersion means you have the feeling to be in another place. And when you're in another place, of course, the auditive part, the sonic part, the audio part is important, because when you're at home, it sounds different than when you're in the woods or when you're in the city, and so on. And this is something that's very, very powerful, especially on a subconscious level. Yeah.
And then I think another interesting thing with TableTone is that all your sounds are organic. They're all sort of recorded either live. So you've got real arrows being shot to record, and there's nothing sort of fake or procedural being created with it, which is super interesting.
Yeah, I think we are in the age of AI. I mean, that's not a secret, and there's a lot of AI music and so on, and that's really important for us to do our own stuff and to do our analog stuff. We do not record everything we do. We use sound libraries too, but everything is like real. It's not done by robots. And we work with a pretty we have some in-house audio creators, and we have some composers we work with, and some audio engineers we work with. It's really important that this human component is really important to us in terms of sound. And that, as you said, that it really, we really try for a very organic feel, even if you have some very abstract sounds that not exist in real life. It's still important that it feels real. And for example, when we do a location, the main example is the tavern. You start your story in the tavern. This is just not a recorded audio track of some people talking background and some glasses clinking and so on. This is actually up to, I think, if I get it correctly, but it's up to 40 audio tracks that always play together. You can change, as you said, you can change the intensity seamlessly. You can change the mood of the tavern. You can change the situation inside the tavern, and that's all like one place. And that's one hand a lot of work to do, and the other hand it feels really organic, and that again enhances the immersion. That again enhances the feel of being really there, of really the movement that's just actually happening.
Hey, crowdfunding nerds, if you're looking for an awesome fulfillment partner for US shipping, you should really consider Bridge Distribution and Fulfillment. I personally use them. I've used them for multiple projects. They do such a great job. They also can fulfill Amazon orders and get you prepped for Amazon and their warehousing team. I have been so happy using Bridge Distribution. I'm really proud that they're sponsoring us. If you reach out, bridgedist.com, that's bridgedist.com, let them know we sent you. All right, now back to the show.
Yeah, there's a sort of triangle that you can change the kind of the levels or the intensity of the actual sound. And I've noticed that you can really create different moods just by removing the music and just having the ambiances, like the fire crackling, and it has a very sort of different experience than if you just have the music or you've kind of mixed it. So it's great that you have those features built into the app where you can, if you want to maybe slow things down, just remove the music entirely and just have the ambience of like an owl croaking in a forest somewhere. It's a bit more kind of relaxed, and then, or you can add the music when things start intensifying, and when you have a battle you can just have everything blazing, so it could be quite fun, just if you've just encountered an enemy, to just kind of ramp everything up suddenly, and then sort of adds to that excitement. So I think one thing that is also really impressive with your team is that your ability to really make sounds for really any genre. So I know you've done different partnerships with different publishers, creating very unique sounds to sort of encapsulate certain worlds. You've worked with all sorts, right? You've worked with board game publishers, you've worked with tabletop role-playing game publishers to create specific sounds. Do you want to maybe speak into that? Maybe an example of one where you've kind of taken a particular world and you've kind of crafted sounds for that world?
Yeah, we actually have a really interesting project going on with Magpie Games. You guys actually connected us with them, which was really, really awesome. We first we were like looking for some cross promotion, and Mark from Magpie Games was, we want to go, we don't want to go the whole 9 yards. We want to go really do a project together and really, go do a project on content level. And they included us as their $1 million stretch goal at their Fallen London RPG, which it actually reached. And right now they're writing the game at the moment. They're writing the books, and we're at the moment creating. It just started to create the content, and it's so. I think there are a couple of aspects in creating sound. So there's like this more generic part, if to come back to the tavern example, a tavern and a bar and a restaurant, they might not be, in terms of audio, might not be that different. So that you have some places or a street with people on them, that's always going to be sounding very different, very similar. You have like this part, and then you have like really particular locations, for example, or particular sounds to a certain, we call it universe, to the universe of for example, the Fallen London RPG. And that is where our process begins. This is where we talk to the publisher, to send us away. Please send us the locations where you think the game is going to play. Give us a short description on what's going on there. What can we imagine it to be? And for example, in Fallen London is the undersea, or there's this bazaar and this market. I think some kind of carnival, and so there are some particular locations that's gonna be in the game, and they send us the information description, and then we start. Then we look at what we might already have in the library, what we can use, and maybe adapt and maybe remix. And then we start, creating based on their descriptions, we start creating the content. So there's, for example, let's say we're creating the bazaar, so this marketplace, and with the description, with what's going on there. We create not only the like surroundings and the ambiences, we also match like a playlist of music that fits to that location, that is played automatically when this location is selected in the Fallen London universe, particularly.
Yeah, you're sort of perfectly geared up for cross promotions and collaborations because of the nature of what how flexible your app is into integrating itself into different systems and worlds.
Yeah.
And I know that TableTone has quite a sizable email list, quite a sizable Discord. So you have kind of generated a community of people who are interested in creating immersive experiences and sharing that with others. So you have some leverage where you can say, okay, you can go to a publisher and say, well, we will send out an email to our community, directing them to your game, and you do likewise, directing them to the app. And we might even throw in, a custom sound or custom package for your audience. So it works really well for cross promotion. So anyone listening who is interested in doing some type of cross collab, then definitely reach out to the TableTone team. We'll include a link in the show notes for people to do that, because it's a great way, as we saw with the Fallen London ad, even to add as a stretch goal. If we reach this certain goal, we will collaborate with TableTone to create this really immersive audio experience for people to play with a card game or play with a board game or a tabletop role-playing game. I think there's sort of the ability to incorporate this into various types of games is also there. So it's something to certainly think about for the listeners.
Yeah, thanks for pointing it out, and it's really, we have, as you said, and that's important. We have really many different levels on that we can cooperate with publishers.
On our podcast all the time, we talk about things like we talk about drivers and catchers. They're kind of two types of marketing initiatives. One of them drives interest, and the other kind of captures the interest of marketing campaigns. So whereas, let's say, finding an influencer, getting that influencer to talk about you is going to drive interest to new people who may have never heard of Tabletone. And then, you might only receive that interest on, let's say, a Kickstarter campaign, or maybe you get more app downloads, but they're not necessarily perfectly aligned, right? Like, I can't say, oh, this influencer caused that many app downloads, and you can't perfectly know how effective it is. But but one thing I think is undeniable is that things that drive interest are essential to marketing and to growing. And Tabletone, being the type of product it is,
Yeah.
you have worked through a lot of influencers, and I would love to learn a little bit more about how you guys identify an influencer that might be a good fit. Is it only YouTube, or do you use other kind of, do you look otherwise? How do you find them? And how do you kind of work to partner with them?
Yeah. I think you make a great point about those two sides, of marketing. I think of it like brand and sales, kind of, like brand long term, hard to measure, sales short term, going away, but easy to measure. And actually, what we found, and I will get to that in a second in detail. What we found is that influence is kind of between. Influence drives a lot of interests, but what we saw, they're driving really directly, like sales in terms of downloads and new tries and so on. So, but let me start at the beginning. How we find influencers. So I just explained before that in our team, most people have a background in music and have a background in technologies, and we are hobby. Some of our hobby gamers. I'm really new to the whole RPG thing and so on. So I was amazed by when I started a year and a half ago or a year ago. I was amazed by this whole community. I didn't know that there were that many publisher and games and type of games, and it's really I found it really awesome. But at the same time, you need to get a feel for it. You need to understand. There's wargaming, there's RPGs, there's and so on and so on, and you get into this whole area. But that said, we have you guys, for example, who can consult us, and show us interesting publishers and projects and so on. And we have in our team, we have a couple. We have like our in-house game master. We have Jacques, and we have Gianluca, who is more a content creator himself, but is with high affinity to RPG gaming. So this is always a very important source, for us to find influencer. So this is like the base. The other thing I like to have those. I like to think in terms of like vibe, reach, cost, and placement. What we said. So if we get a suggestion or somebody points out influencer, if you go on YouTube and search for influencer, you find the most important ones really quickly. And then I kind of go through that process. I think is the vibe right? For example, do we think they're good fit to our brand? Do we like what they're doing? Do they have a good humor? Are they just do the nice content basically? So that's really like on a personal level. So, for example, which it's a great example, like Bob the World Builder. With Bob World Builder, we did a cooperation, and that's you know him. It's really such a nice guy who makes such a nice content, and it's really great for us to be associated with his channel and his content. The second one is like this reach cost pair. So. You always get a lot of data, from agencies or from the influencer and so on. But what I really look at is the last 20 videos. How many views do they have in the last 20 videos? Just about, what can we expect? So, and of course that this the one side, and the other side is the cost. What does the placement cost? And the fourth part, because we are not a game, and the placements are often tailored to publisher and often tailored to games, and so on. This has to fit. We had a couple of examples where you think, hey, this great influencer, the reach is great, the cost is great, everything would like to do that. but there was not really a placement for us where we could place TableTone, an app in that tabletop.
So kind of more
world,
specifically drilling into placement, are you talking about like if it's a board game or an RPG, you actually have a box you can sit out on the table, or a book you can sit on the table, show people as they talk about it, and then show it physically and that sort of thing. But then Tabletone being an app, it's largely abstract. How do you get, like, what is good placement for you guys? Like, what would influencers do? How would they use it?
So what we have experience with in-depth review, like really an influencer looking at the app for an hour and really explain everything, and that's interesting content, but that actually didn't move the needle as much as we saw. And I think that's a great bridge to going over to how we like track success. And then we did really what's called like a sponsor spot with Bob Wordbuilder, where just I think 30 seconds, 60 seconds, something like that, just made an ad basically inside his and placed it in one of his videos. And so as you said, of course, we're counting on like this brand effect, this long-term effect, this demand generation. But when Bob Wordbuilder actually did this placement, we saw really a spike in downloads, a spike in trials, a spike in new subscriptions. And there's still, I think 3 weeks ago or something, we still see effects of that. We also gave him a promo code, and we can track how many promo codes are used, but not that many promo codes were used. If we only would look at the promo codes and not at the lift in subscriptions or lift in downloads, we would believe it wasn't that successful, because not that many people used the promo code. This was really a small number, but a lot of people discovered our app and tried it out and started to try it.
What I think is happening there is, and I think this is the kind of leverage of the influencer marketing, is that even though that's an ad, a lot of people watching that particular video said, "Oh, this project looks cool. I'll share this with my friend." And when they share it with their friend, they're not including the promo code. And then their friend just says, "Oh yeah, this looks neat. I'll download it." And then it's almost powerful, because when a friend just shares it with another friend, it's not an ad. It's just a friend sharing something cool with another friend. And so that's kind of how you're tapping into the kind of network of the influencer themselves. And the ad becomes almost like an organic ad, because you're kind of tapping into the fans of that particular creator, and then they're just going to organically share with their communities. And that's how you kind of get this effect. Because it's really interesting. Now, in terms of tracking results, something that we do is we obviously sit down with you every week and we just look at, here's everything going in, here's everything coming out. And so we got a pretty good feel, I suppose, of what the kind of average results are. So when we see a specific change, like a influencer dropping a video, we can clearly see if there was a spike or a dip, or how that impacts things. And I think that kind of shows you the importance of just diligently reviewing performance on like a weekly basis of how things are doing. And then I know one interesting thing with TableTone is there's like a lag, because there's a trial period for 2 weeks. You can sign up, get all the features for 2 weeks. And then after that, that's when you have to subscribe. So we kind of see if, for example, Bob the World Builder, we saw a huge spike in trials. And then so our projection is, okay, in 2 weeks, all these people are going to convert. And then behold, 2 weeks later, a bunch of people convert and eventually try the app. So that's something that we also have got used to. So just because we might increase ad spend, we might not see the actual profit come in straight away, but we might see some other indicator like trials increases or downloads increase, and that's also quite a valuable metric to keep track of.
Because in across industries, I'll give you a couple of examples where you do something and see what you actually use the word, Nikki used the word lift, and I really like that word, because it's almost like the analogy is like the ocean, where there's like a swell of something that doesn't become a wave yet because it's not at the beach. But that swell in the water is going, if you just look at that as the indicator, swells in the ocean end up turning into waves when when they reach the shore. And so in the same way, marketing, the work that we do, or the influencers that you reach, they cause swelling, which or the lift, which eventually results in um you know uh in captured sales or whatever it is. And I noticed this in a couple of different places. One of them is actually with Deliverance, for example, as uh pretty expensive game. It's about $100 board game. When we did our Kickstarter thing, but we reached the market,
Mhm.
and then we start running Facebook ads, and we're running Facebook ads like crazy. After um, the initial Christmas 2023 season, where we were selling 20 to 40 or 20 to 30 copies a day, sometimes. Then it went down to 5 copies after the shopping season was over. I began to notice that when we would pause ads, and then sales would continue until about 2 to 3 weeks later, and then they would fall
Mhm.
off. And when we would turn ads on, we would
Okay, yeah.
see, sales would not really begin until 2 to 3 weeks later. And what I've learned is that with Deliverance, though, all of the content out there, the website, everything that somebody could do to research the game, it took about 2 to 3 weeks to make a purchase decision, to kind of get that person. They would join our communities. So we would learn. We found, after studying this carefully and just observing, a lot of data is kind of anecdotal, where you don't see like hard details and proof of whatever. You get to see the lift happening. People are joining our social media, and like our Discord community is growing, our Facebook group is growing, the people are asking more questions, and then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, we're noticing more sales. It's like, this makes sense,
Mhm.
and so that lift turns into captured sales. But then another totally different area is when I'm working for a small business like a plumber or something like that, and getting their website to the top of Google using a marketing technique called SEO marketing. That is, we notice that when we get someone to the top of Google, or when they're approaching, like, their rank 5 and then they go to rank 4 and 3, they start to get traffic to their website. That
Mhm.
traffic rarely converts to phone calls
Mhm.
and leads and whatnot
Mhm.
immediately. Now, this is specifically service-based businesses.
Mhm.
It typically takes a month. I always tell people the
Yeah.
groundswell of traffic is oftentimes the first thing that we see, and then the month following, people will call you, unless it's an emergency. And if let's say you're a plumber and someone's water heater explodes and they have no hot water, and they really need that because they live in Alaska,
Mhm.
or the Netherlands or something, I don't know, you're going to get a call right away. But
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
someone has a leaky faucet, if they've got some other issue, then they will do their research and figure out, and reach out at a time that's convenient. And that time period's about 4 weeks
Yeah.
for someone to do that. And so this phenomenon exists in so many places. And what I notice is that sometimes people that people listening to this podcast, they'll say, like, for example, they'll compare one Kickstarter campaign to their next Kickstarter campaign, and that's like a year or 2 years apart. And they'll say, well, last time for example, last time we had all this marketing, or we had no marketing, and then this time we had whatever the opposite is, and they both seem like they're performing the same.
Mhm.
And that is so far separated. What you're doing is you're taking like a year or two of time in between and saying none of that matters. These campaigns are comparing apples to apples, which is never the case. You would just end up with skewed data.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have in the on the digital product side, we have like another delay. That's the lifetime value. So they might convert today or in 2 weeks, and they pay the first month. But then we need to hold them, and then they're not actually only paying the first month, but they're paying 6 months, 7 months, however they like the app at the end of the day. So this is something also to take into account when you look at the data. And as you said, I think it's about rising the tide, getting that lift. And if you put and put something into the system like influencer placement, and then it lifts. We're looking for that it lifts over long term, and then but we have to see in which after what time we have another cooperation with another influencer and so on. So that builds up and builds up. So the whole baseline gets higher.
So, one thing in regard to working with multiple influencers at the same time, or multiple marketing channels at the same time, there has to be a certain amount of, you have to step back and look at everything and believe in what it is that you're doing. There's always a reason that for example, reached out to the influencers. That influencer A, B, and C, that you've all reached out to them independently. They've all done their placement. Bob the World Builder, for example, is the one that we used as a recent example. When you're working with multiple influencers, you may not be able to track success to any single influencer, but what you're relying on is your track record of success and that you've experienced with influencers. That marketing with them in this particular manner has produced results. And so part of, I think there's this like a trusting the process that has to take place, where you're not going to be able to figure out exactly how it works unless you make sure that there's nothing else, there's no other variable that could possibly explain the success. Like if I'm working with 3 influencers, I might say, wow, we had lift of 40% more downloads per day than normal. Well, which influencer was it? I don't necessarily know. Maybe the one with the most views, maybe the one that was the most excited, but I know that the activity, these are result producing activities. And if you try to think and and really eliminate all variables, what you're losing is time. So oh, we're only going to work with one influencer at a time because I need to know exactly how that affects us. And oh, Bob the World Builder worked the best. So you lost 4 weeks trying to figure that out. Where you could have just been working with all 3 and moving, and you could have had a bigger lift and all that. And so I think this is a real factor when, for example, like if you have a Kickstarter campaign, or you've got some sort of a sale running, or just you're trying to make as much revenue as possible to keep the lights on, you really have to, you can't play games with ads. You can't say, oh, we're just going to shut ads off for the next 3 weeks and see what happens. It's like you're going to lose, and you have to trust in the process. Like, why do we run ads? We run ads to, like Facebook ads, to reach new people. And those new people are absolutely, when they see our product, if we target correctly and we send them to the right landing page, we say the right things, they're going to download the app and get a free trial. People that get a free trial sign up for the full program, and
I think that's changing at the moment a lot, because I guess like 10 years ago it was very when there was not that much data privacy laws in place and so on, and because everything you could track, on Facebook you could really target everybody who likes this one book or something like that, and this has really changed, as we all know. So the data is not that reliable anymore. And like I'd say 10 years ago, maybe even longer, but in my experience, it was like only 2 things you can track, only 2 things you get the data out of and can say if it's successful or not. And that is changing. It's more like, okay, we know now we cannot track everything. We don't know everything in terms of data. We need to just go out in maybe in channels, in forums, in to influencer, maybe even out in the real world, and do some
Oh, that's
marketing.
scary.
Yeah, scary. Yeah, scary for a digital marketer. But that really is going, of course, to go to fairs and so on. And this is really important at the moment, and this is important to stand out. And I think that's what I heard from here from different sides in the marketing community, digital marketing community. This is what people's and we do and really seriously looking at, And you see, if you do all those, I just said, do different channels and do different efforts, at the end of the day, you see it. You see a positive trend. You might not be able to say what it was exactly, but if you do all the channels right and all the measures and all the tactics right, you'll feel it and see it in the numbers. Yeah.
Fantastic. I have a theory that will probably send Sean down a rabbit hole, but if I think that I actually so it was iOS 14 was the big change for Facebook, where everyone that used an iPhone, people that used iPhones buy more things, is what I have generally found. And so being able to iPhone 14, the operating system, I believe we're at iOS 18 now, but iOS 14, it automatically opted people into privacy settings that made it so that apps, like Facebook and you name it, could no longer track what it is that a person that was on their iPhone did. And I think that Google Analytics is another system. They went from Google Analytics 3 to Google Analytics 4, GA4, which really really sucks as far as like the ability to like just Google GA3 had really nice charts and graphs, and it was easy to use and very user friendly as like an SEO marketer showing a client a chart or graph. It's like, oh, you see how this chart is going up in a good direction? It's nice, and then GA4 is like, oh, you can do that exact same thing. You just have to, learn how to code and plug in a billion more things. And by the way, the tracking doesn't work like it used to. Oh, you want to track conversions? All right, let's take 4 weeks and pay someone $1,000 to track conversions per client. Whereas before it was just pressing a button and installing some code. I actually think that there are two reasons for this. Number one is certainly because customers, or rather users, are becoming more aware of their privacy, and they're kind of placing higher value on privacy nowadays. But then also corporation, this is what's going to send Sean into a tailspin. Corporations are placing higher value on privacy. You think about Google, one of the biggest corporations in the world, is their primary product is a free search engine and a free like video service, YouTube, right? And they are one of the largest corporations in the world. They only have free products. The end users are getting their data sold to the government. That is why and they're getting their data. Google is using data for profit. And I think that if data is publicly available, then we don't need to pay for it. All right. Or the government doesn't need to pay for it. And now they do.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's free, you're the product yourself. The user is the product. Yeah.
So in terms of what's next for TableTone, what do you have on the plate, on the plan for?
I can't believe we're not talking about the CA right now or something. Carry on.
So, in terms of TableTone, what's the next steps? I know that because you have a subscription service, this kind of allows you to continually produce new sound effects and new worlds, and it seems like I can't remember your release schedule, but at least every month you're bringing out some type of new content. So maybe what was the thought process behind that, and then also what are you currently working on?
So we have like two sides, like the content side and like the feature technology side when we're talking about what we're currently working on. So as we talked before, one of our large content projects is the Fallen London RPG, and we're at the moment looking for new partners and new IPs. We can produce tailor-made content for. At the moment, on the other hand, we are the next content release is kind of the last one in May. So we have, as you said, we have monthly content releases. This is for us. It's really important that we deliver deliver value to our users on a regular basis. So they're paying a monthly subscription, and for that they're getting new content every month. That's for sure a little different than maybe in physical game, or different than what publisher do. But I think that's one of the most important thing. That's one of the most important thing that reason for us having pretty high retention. That always get delivered new content. Right, the last month we did like Fade themed content. Now we have like pirate themed content where we don't have too much yet in that direction. But basically at the moment we have 3 universes. It's fantasy, it's like classical fantasy, that's like the largest one. We have sci-fi and horror at the moment. And we're trying to continuously, to make them bigger and enhance the library for each of those universes. This on the content side. I think I can spoiler it. I think the one after the pirate is gonna be goblin themed, but don't tell anybody. And so this is still in the making. So this is what we're working on content side. On what we're really excited about, and we are still working on the roadmap, how we're gonna deliver it, and what we're seriously looking at the moment, and that's on the side of technology, a pretty large thing, pretty big thing, is we like to go into VTT, because now we only have the mobile app, and that's, you can use it. We have, with some workarounds, you can use it in virtual tabletop, but it's not that intuitive. It's not that easy. And right now we are looking at options, how to
integrate with things like Roll20 or
for example,
That's cool. That's very cool.
We're looking at that.
That really came out of I know you ran a poll. You polled your community, and one of the a lot of people saying that they love about TableTone is that just the variety of sounds, how many different worlds you have, and then the other was the ease of use. But one of the criticisms, or I suppose areas to kind of why people maybe weren't subscribing, was that it lacked the ability to be used with a virtual tabletop system or remote and like online. Because I think a lot of people now are playing role-playing games virtually, so having something that can just plug into that system. But I think there's also a value in having something that's physical. I think role-playing games are far more fun face to face and around a table. So in one way, I kind of like that there's only currently. I know you are working on bringing it, but right now I kind of like how it's only really, you can only really use it easily face to face, because it kind of encourages people to get face to face and play. And I think these experiences are better face to face anyway. And so, but I'm glad that you're listening to what people are saying, and you're also trying to satisfy their needs. But if anyone listening, I would probably encourage you try and spend more time face to face with folks. I think it's going to have better experiences. And something like TableTone, which is designed to increase immersion, I just think that it's just going to add a cherry to the top of your experiences with face to face role playing.
So, as so I guess for those listening, that are running or that are crafting RPGs, we have a lot of, people that are working on RPGs, taking them toward, getting them ready for crowdfunding. These people make potentially great partners for you guys, because you can develop a catalog of sounds, a catalog of ambient music and other things that would fit their RPG setting. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. We talked about before. We talked about the different possibilities of doing collaborations, and the good thing about our system. So I talked about it before briefly. So if we create a location, an audio location like a tavern or a castle or whatnot, that's a lot of work. That's like 40 audio tracks that all have to play together. You can do, change them in intensity and situation and so on. And it's really, there's really a lot. So it feels really, really good and really at the end of the day. So that's like to really tailor, content, somebody that's like our, premium offering, so to speak. But we have ways to reuse existing content and do it, kind of remix it, package it differently and so on, and use it in a different context. And the interesting thing about audio and music is that if you put it in a different content, it gets different meaning. I mean, this I always explained with the forest example. I mean, a forest sounds the same today, and it sounds the same in a fantasy universe. It sounds the same 1,000 years ago, and so on, more or less. Of course, you have to adjust it, and maybe you have some particularities in that, but basically, it's possible to, especially for small companies, and looking for just a low threshold project. We're working on delivering the tailor-made sound universe pretty fast and quickly. So this is the possibilities we can offer.
Yeah, so I know in TableTone you have these scenes, right? So then they're kind of like a preset of sounds for different worlds, an example. So if you have a particular game, let's say it's a card game and it's about, I know, superheroes kind of fighting, you could create a scene that has all these sort of superhero sounds, like impacts and punches and kicks and explosions and things. So that's something that you could kind of take existing sounds you have from all your expansive library and just kind of compile them into this one scene for the specific game.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're talking about. Actually, presets, and the scenes are like snapshots of the presets. So in the preset, you have everything you need for this story or part of the story, and the scenes are actually more like chapters in a book, And you launch a scene, and then you go from and forest where you just had to fight some goblins to a tavern where you can, get a drink and talk to some strangers.
So when is the Critical Role partnership coming?
Yeah, we're working on that.
Okay. I actually think
I do know that
professionals would really, really appreciate this type of system.
Yeah.
I do know that Donnie reached out to Brandon Sanderson and got a response. They were interested, so that might be on the table at some stage in the future.
Yeah.
So I know we had Donnie, because Donnie is a big tabletop role player. So I know he reached out to a lot of influencers. And I suppose maybe they're coming back to the influencer question. How do you find influencers? And I think maybe the first place to start is who influences you is probably a good place to start, and then go from there. And then I think polling your community as well, saying, hey, which YouTubers do you watch or which podcasts do you listen to? And using that as a basis in order to kind of help find more folks.
Yeah. It's funny because I just had breakfast with a friend who is a big we actually originally met through Deliverance, and then he moved 1,500 miles into my city with his family, and we just had breakfast. And so he's a huge board game player, and I used to be a huge board game player, and now I'm a board game maker. Where he was telling me he'd have a game. He plays solo board games sometimes, and he'll have in his office he has a table with a game set up and like Arc Nova or some other game, and in between meetings he'll go and take a turn and solo board gaming, take a turn. Well, in between my meetings I'm thinking about, I'm working on this particular boss content for my game, and I need to figure out how to like optimize these words so that my player base will understand how to execute the ability of this character. And I realized, over time, I'm getting further and further separated from being who my community is, and thinking like a board gamer. I'm thinking like a board game designer and a board game developer and a maker. And what I really need to understand, in order to sell my product, I need to get into the mind of those that consume my product, that play games, right? And I think that the tendency as someone who's making is you're oftentimes not surrounding you're not naturally surrounded by the circles of people who are engaging with your product, because you're engaging with the people that are engaging with your product. And the reason that they're engaging with your product is because they have a D&D night every Thursday, and they always play with their friends, and they take the TableTone app out and use that, or a bunch of different reasons. But there's this like 1 degree of separation from I guess the source of people. The reason people buy the product is to enjoy it. And for us that are the people that are making products, we are oftentimes we really we might have started, like you had mentioned, Nikki, that you didn't originally start as like an RPG player, but year and a half ago you just got immersed in this world, and it's been a lot of fun. That there are people that have been in this world for 30 years and just have regular, they're like the regular GM and everything. And it's fascinating to me that I have kind of moved from a player into much more of a designer, where I don't play tons of new games and I don't play tons of games because I'm always working on them. And maybe it feels like that for me now because we're trying to wrap up the development of a game for delivery, but it's at the polling of the community is so important, because if you have an engaged community, they are your people. They will tell you why they're using your product. They will tell you what they really want, and they'll give you all the answers that you need to continue thriving as a company, really. And what do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think I can start my answer with a shout out to our Discord community, which is really, really helpful and really helping us to to get insights into their world. They're pretty active. They're not that large yet, the community, but they're very active, and hey, why don't you do that? And when can we have this feature? And maybe try some of that content and so on. And that's always important source of inspiration, but also of ideas for in which direction to go with our next development. There's also the polling we do inside, like actually asking question, how do you like it? What do you want to see? How do you play the games? Which games do you play? But at the same time, they are pushing a lot in our direction. And we wouldn't be there where we are at the moment if we didn't have that. So that's really super, super important to us. Yeah. And we're grateful for their input.
So, Nikki, it's been a pleasure having you on and obviously working with you. Where can folks get in contact? Let's say they want to collab with TableTone. What's the best way to reach out to your team?
The best thing is to probably go to our website, tabletone.app, and shoot us a message. The other one is finding us on Discord. And connect with us there. So it's not difficult to find us online.
Great. Well, we'll make sure to include links in the show notes for people to check that out.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I highly encourage you guys to just download the app. It's free. They've got like a bunch of sample sounds and ambience environments that you can check out. It is really cool. Just phone app, search up TableTone. It is amazing. So just gotta give that little shout out to you guys. I'm very impressed with that. Thanks for being a client of ours and for giving us giving our communities such wisdom. So look forward to having you back. We're gonna have Robot Richard send us on out.
Thanks for your support, and thanks for having me.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.
Hey, crowdfunding nerds, it's Andrew Lowen, and I wanted to introduce you guys to the Crowdfunding Nerds Academy. If you don't know, we have a do-it-yourself course system that will teach you how to build, excite, and prepare a crowd to fund you on your launch day, and that is our goal. I have used these systems to help raise over $30 million for tabletop campaigns, over 200 tabletop crowdfunding campaigns since 2019. I've generated over $100 million through e-commerce sales using these processes. These courses teach you how to replicate our results. They're made for the small creator. Over 150 of those people were first-time creators. These courses contain hundreds of hours of podcast discussions and tons of details that are almost impossible to find on the internet. And they have been distilled into concentrated courses that you can absorb quickly. They are designed to generate results. We hold nothing back. Visit crowdfundingnerds.com/academy to learn more, or just Google search Crowdfunding Nerds Academy.